Hi, everyone. This is Jackie Cooper with the Blockchain Legal Institute and the Maryland Blockchain Association. We are here today because of some remarkable things that have been happening within our community. There have been problems that have occurred, and now there are solutions. And I'm always excited as the tech innovates and we are able to support our community with providing the solutions. Constellation Network has been in our ecosystem for quite a while, and I've known the founders for over, I guess, a year now or more. And so we have been doing a variety of virtual events as well as in-person events. And so many of you who are listening might have seen our conversations. But for those that haven't, we are going to start back on the history of Constellation. And I'm going to have Benjamin explain a little bit more about how the company got started and why there was a need. And we're very excited to have both you, Dave, as well as Benjamin here to kind of share what you've created, because I think it's going to really be a solution to a lot of people's problems.
Appreciate it, Jackie. Thank you so much. And as you well know, I think the world of you, and we're a part of the Blockchain Legal Institute, and you've done a great job with the community and pushing things forward. So I just want to thank you for having us today. I'm Benjamin Diggles. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer as well as one of the co-founders of Constellation. We're now in our 9th year as a business, which is pretty far out. So I could probably spend all the time talking about the history of Constellation. But I'm going to keep it extremely short and sweet. We are a blockchain ecosystem company, meaning we have pretty much all the attributes you would have with a blockchain company. Largely on the Web3 side, we have the ability for you to build your own blockchain solutions. We have a wallet that's a multi-currency wallet. We have a decentralized exchange. All of those wonderful things that I think are the expression of a healthy blockchain company. However, we also really made a big effort in focusing on the legacy, really focusing on the real world. How do we get the real world to adopt these Web3 tools versus trying to get everybody in the world to come over to Web3? So we really wanted to target our focus around legacy systems, and that's how we started our work with the Department of Defense about 7 years ago, working on provable communications. And really, if you think about the beauty of what blockchain brings forward is a mutable ledger technology, which is it's set in stone from the moment it gets written to the ledger, which offers a whole world of advanced analytics and amazing use cases where you have this provable data that not only could be trusted as a trust layer, but also largely used for automating things that we aren't automating today because we all get nervous about trustworthy data. So I believe that there's this amazing happening taking place. Sad to say that nobody trusts anybody anymore. But if we add this solution to these existing systems and workflows and emerging such as AI, we now have that trust layer that gives us confidence that we can trust the data and go forth and do amazing things, not only as institutions, but by interoperating with other institutions and sharing data in a meaningful way. So I encourage folks to check out constellationnetwork.io. There's a whole treasure trove of information there, as well as our YouTube has a lot of information if you want to learn more about the different attributes of our company. That said, I want to tee up my good buddy and business accomplice here, Dave Berg. Dave has been with us a little over a year and was a very strategic hire. He's very senior in his category, and we were looking for one of the best when it comes to being a chief product officer. I did a lot of work in a program that you may have heard of called Iron Spire, which was around those provable communications with the DoD. And we brought Dave in, and what he did is he created the backbone of our entire product line, which is called digital evidence. So we really encourage folks to look up Constellation Digital Evidence, dig in. And the beauty about digital evidence is it can be applied to so many different use cases. And one of the areas that Dave cut his teeth on, amongst many after launching digital evidence, was focusing on the real estate market. And so I'm not going to steal his thunder. I want to talk a little bit today about our announcement and launch of the real estate ledger. And you'll see under my name, just to make it a little bit easier for folks, I didn't put my title. I decided to put the URL for the application and the website. That is Real Estate Ledger. So you can check it out at realestateledger.io after this or at your own leisure. So I'd love to hand this over to Dave to give us a little bit of a walkthrough. And I really appreciate, again, Jackie having us. And Dave, thanks for being here, bud.
Yeah, right, well, go ahead.
All right. Thank you, Jackie. Thank you, Benjamin. It's always tough following you two. But like Benjamin mentioned, I've been with the team a little over a year. I've got a background in mathematics and engineering. So I've done a lot with AI, with cybersecurity, with network engineering, you name it. I've been around the block, so to speak. And when I joined Constellation, like Benjamin was mentioning, one of the first things I sponsored was digital evidence, which is essentially blockchain as a service, right? The whole open source, we still passionately embrace open source, but the whole build it and they'll come is not very predictable, right? So I was like, well, let's temper that with some products. I'm the product officer. That's kind of why I was brought in. So we built digital evidence, and we've been seeing some really great results with that. And we're like, okay, now how do we lead by example? How do we show the world the wonderful things we can do? And digging into real estate as one of my thought exercises was like, there's a lot going on there with tokenization and so forth. But when you think to some of the principles of Web3, right? Benjamin was mentioning immutability, but we talk a lot about proof of work, proof of ownership. Those things are very well defined. When you're in the real estate world, proof of management is all of a trust thing, and trust is at an all-time low these days. You look at, I'm going to invest, I want to tokenize, invest in this tokenized asset. Well, it's great. I can do cross-border transactions. I can do speed of light transactions. I could just be throwing my money down at a bad investment. How do I know it's a good investment? And when I was doing my research, I kept seeing all these very well-structured opportunities out there, companies, and so forth. And they always had one line in there, are trusted property managers. I'm like, I have no reason to trust them. I don't know them. I don't know their work. I don't know what's going on. So as a blockchain or as an infrastructure company, I felt, well, great, we can help with that. And that's where the real estate ledger, I name things what they are. I'm not, not that creative. Really came to be is, okay, how do we have a ledger, this immutable ledger for property, whether it's commercial, whether it's residential, whatever it is. How do we manage the provenance of the data from, you could do, from when it's built, but a lot of properties have already been built. So from day one, how do I track this stuff? And as an owner, I want to do that because I want to have all my stuff in one place. I want to be able to fix the fridge if it breaks. Where's the manual? Understand where my warranties are, so on. If I'm a builder, I want to be able to protect myself against future indemnity. Like somebody comes back 3 years later, oh, you didn't do this right. Well, no, I have all of it in one place. Here's the permit. Here's the pictures of the inspection. You name it. If I'm managing a commercial property and I want to understand my expenses, or so on and so forth. There's so many use cases that circle around that center of proof, that center of trust. And so that's what we've built, and it's live. And so if I could, I'd like to go through just a couple of the early testimonials that we've received from the community, and then actually show you the product.
Do you want me to add to our stage, so to speak, your screen?
Please.
Okay, there we go.
All right. So getting into here, pretty real estate ledger. This is a story I just told you about, just the foundation of trust, being able to say, this is what it was on this date. There's always room for bad actors, don't get me wrong, but really solidifying, this is what I have, and this is what I'm sharing with you. That starts to build that foundation of trust, making a new standard of confidence in real estate, as we say. We had our first home sale already, where a gentleman and his family, they're building a new home. They wanted to sell their existing home. They leaned into real estate ledger. They put all their documents in, and they created essentially what people like to call the Carfax for your home.
Nice.
And they printed this out. I helped them a little bit because it was still early on. It was about 10 pages long, listed the manuals, the warranties, the paint samples, you name it. Printed it out, and when they were doing their viewings, they had it sitting right there next to the normal real estate brochure. They canceled their open house. They had so many competing bids right away. People were like, well, this is great. You've answered so many of my questions preemptively. And Dayton, Ohio, they sold their house in 3 days above asking. And so now we have a lot of fans in Dayton, Ohio that I'm probably going to fly there in a couple of weeks to go meet with some real estate agents that want to figure out how they can leverage this to give them that competitive advantage.
So do you mind if I ask questions as you're sharing?
Please, please, yes.
So with this house, and they put the information on chain,
Yeah.
are they able to transfer that information then to the new owner?
That's absolutely true. So a few things with that. One
Super
is as
simple.
a
Yeah,
please, Jackie.
that makes it super simple then.
It does, and that was part of the intent. So first thing is, as they're under contract, what they can do now is they can add the under contract buyer as a view only user. So they have the a PDF, if you will, with links in it, but they can actually go and see the full documents now. And so that really helps understand the discovery. If there's any questions, really speeds up big parts of the closing process. And
So
then
one more question. So with this house,
Mhm.
once the deed gets transferred, are they able to upload the deed as well, so that way it can get recorded and shown that they're the owners?
Absolutely.
That makes
So what happens on closing is the seller would then transfer that property. So what'll happen is the seller will maintain a read-only version of everything in that property, and they'll be able to refer back to that, but they won't be able to change it. The buyer gets a fresh copy. All of it's still recorded on chain, but then the buyer can then maintain that going forward, and the seller doesn't see anything that the buyer does after that. And that way, and then of course the buyer gets 6 months free to try it out and see how they like it. But recording the deed, recording all that information, just helps them as they're managing the property and keeping that paper trail with the property as it goes. It may go to a new family in a few years. Who knows what the future may hold.
I also see, I know you might be talking about this later on, but the other application that I see is, as a real estate owner, if I wanted to rent out my property and then I wanted to upload the copy of the lease, so that way it would be there to show what who's in the property and who actually owns the property. So that's another
Mhm.
way of having the evidence for the ownership there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Great. The builder. So the Terraces Townhome is a new community being built in Georgia. What they're doing is they're creating real estate ledger accounts for every property at the build. So this gets all of the information. We're talking, all the conduit, everything goes in there, including when they do rough-ins. So before they put the drywall up, they go and they take pictures. So you do that generally for like electrical inspections, plumbing inspections, but getting those photos logged within Real Estate Ledger helps the owner going forward. If they want to hang something on the wall, they can refer back. Am I going to electrocute myself if I put a nail right here? Or if they want to do some remodeling in the future, having all the information makes that so much more valuable to them. And so, please, I think you're going to say something.
Yeah, I was, just because I've been involved in the construction and this whole area for a little bit. I see, also for permitting as well.
Mhm.
So once you get the permit, a lot of times you don't know where all your paperwork is, like you said, and this makes it very easy, time stamped, and that way you can kind of also refer back when you need it.
Absolutely, yeah. My poor neighbor, when he bought the house, it wasn't properly permitted, and he didn't find out until long ways into closing, and he ended up having to spend a lot of money to get that fixed.
Hmm.
He had a copy real estate ledger in the beginning. He would have been able to ask more directed questions to figure that out sooner.
Yeah.
So I mentioned indemnity, but really, additional to that is the builder's hypothesis is a better documented home will sell faster and for a higher price. So there's immediate return plus long-term value that they're seeing with doing this. So they've leaned in, and you could see Ed has stakes in a few different businesses, and they're all real estate ledger companies at this point. And then another one is homeowners association. So I'm talking to a lot of commercial developers and commercial managers, but this was an interesting one, um, actually close to home for me. I used to be a president of an HOA and I hated it, but because it was very disorganized. And so what's great about this one, they had an issue where they were having a hot water heater installed and the president was on vacation When she came back, the heater was there, the bill was there, but all the paperwork was missing. And so now they're like, what do they do? Where's the warranty? How do I maintain this? If they had real estate ledger, 6 months ago, they would have had all that documentation. Everybody can manage it. You can give the residents view only access to the parts where it's appropriate for them. It makes the paperwork of managing an HOA so much easier. And then you can also set schedules for maintenance, saying, okay, the tuck pointing was inspected this year, and that expires after 10 years. We have to have it inspected again. I don't know what the tuck pointing schedule is, but you see where I'm going with that.
I do, especially
Mhm.
because a lot of times we don't remember when we first bought an item or when we need to kind of go for it's sort of like the car, you get
Yeah.
reminded by, your auto dealer because they want you to do the oil change, but if you don't put it on your calendar, you might not remember.
Oh yeah, my wife and I have that conversation often. Um, so these are just some of the use cases around that. Some of them we're dealing with today, and other ones we're getting to in the near future. Insurance was an interesting one personally for me as I was reviewing my insurance coverage for my home with my insurance agent. At the end, she's like, "Well, would you like a copy of my calculator?" I'm like, "Absolutely." And it looked a lot like the real estate ledger output. The problem was the calculator she had was mostly wrong. Because she was sourcing information from the MLS, from wherever she could find it. So she had some information as far as insurance that I didn't have. I don't have access to, but things like MLS. It mentioned two different types of siding on my home, and they're both wrong. And so with me filling out real estate ledger, I can give this to her, and then she could correct that, and so I can get more appropriate quotes for the coverage of my home. I don't want to be underinsured. I don't want to be overinsured, right?
Mhm.
So great. Um, shall we take a tour?
Yeah, I'd love to see how to set up an account and,
Oh,
all the areas that, this can apply to.
all right.
This is
Let me
super
do.
interesting.
Let me share screen, share window, real estate ledger.
There we
All
go.
right. If you could accept that in. All right. So this is my demo account. There's all kinds of good stuff in here. And so when people first come in, I'm going to go into a demo property here. First thing you want to do is set up your property, right? And so go into settings, and this is where you can configure the address. Well, the address is when you start it, but the first thing you run into is physical details. Make sure you have the lot, if there's a parcel number, so on and so forth. The trick here is, and a lot of people are getting paralyzed because they're like, "Oh, there's so much information. I don't have this. I don't." Just start. You'll add to it over time. That's the whole point of it, right? So put in the best you have, and you go forward. Areas are a wonderful thing, in my opinion, because if you look at, for example, on MLS, they list all your bedrooms and so on and so forth. Copy that here, but you could also have areas like exterior or front lawn or backyard or something like that. Maybe you have some outdoor lighting and you've got documentation for that. So that's what areas are for, different spaces within your property, both internal and external. So that way, then you can see there's documents associated with that. Once you get that set up, vendors are another one. This here could be its own product, right? It's essentially a Rolodex for your property. And, like had a plumber come in when I first bought the house and do some repairs on a few of the toilets. That receipt is tucked away in a box in the back of my closet somewhere, but I have it all logged in here. So I can quickly find that when I need to. And then, for example, let me just pick one, DB appliance service. Then I can also see all of the documents that are associated with this vendor. So I have my notes in here if I want to keep track of that, or if I could just go in here and see the work that they did on my oven some time ago.
I see another application here, for when you are doing your taxes or you have to send information over to your accountants. A lot of times you might not remember all the improvements that you've done. And some of those improvements might actually allow you for tax, credits or whatever is happening within the tax code. So I can
Yeah.
see the advantage of having the view side be shared with some of your professional team because it can actually help you.
that was a big inspiration for me. Exactly that. I loathe tax season. My accountant is very conservative and very meticulous, which is why he's my accountant. But to your point, I don't know all. That's why I have an accountant. I don't know all those details. So if I can just give him this manifest of everything I've done with my home, he can understand, oh, you get an energy credit because you upgraded this or something like that. And here's the receipt, right? The number of transactions that we just eliminated by sharing this information, at tax time, and then I can revoke his access or, leave it going however I want. That, you know, being, forget about blockchain for a moment. Just being organized
Yep.
is a huge relief, specifically for someone like me. So yeah, you get a couple of vendors in here, and then the next thing you do is documents. So there's a few ways to get documents into the system. Very easy. You can email. So every organization will be set up with an email address. Send it on in, or you can upload from your file system. Could be your phone, your laptop, whatever. You can click upload. I'm just going to drag one over just for an example. A gas bill. And so what's happening here is it's uploading it to the system. And of course, in this day and age, we'd be remiss if we didn't do a little bit of AI magic. So now in here, it's already reviewed that document. So these are documents that have uploaded, and then you get to go in and you can configure them however is appropriate. So it's gone in here, it's realized it's an invoice and it's for utility. So it's already done some of the work for me. It's pre-filled in the dates, the amount, all that good stuff. At this point, I have to go in and select which property it belongs to, because I have a few properties in my account. And then I can also go in here and select the vendor that it's for. Now I can go in and just approve. And now that got logged in to my property.
Very, very interesting. The other question I have is this all public or is it private until you allow someone to view it? So that way you can have information is it for all or is it specific to those that you select?
Thank you for asking that question. So the blockchain, one of the nuances about blockchain is if it's a private blockchain, it's a glorified database, in my opinion, right? Because you can still change it, right? You lose that certainty and the immutability. This is all serving the digital evidence blockchain, which is publicly addressable, but it's all encrypted. So you can see that real estate ledger is logging things. You can't see that those are coming from Dave Berg's account, nor can you see what is in there. So you can see the fingerprint and we can go back and forth. All of this is completely access controlled. So you have full control over who sees it and who doesn't see it. And that was by design. If you have multiple properties, you can control it on a per property basis even.
Well, that's important from privacy perspective too. It's it's good that you can give everyone access for when you want, but it also means that you can select certain individuals as well.
Exactly. So for example, for my accountant, I may give him access for a few weeks
Mhm.
while we're preparing my taxes. But then I'm a big fan of least privilege access. When he doesn't need it, take it away.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And so you have full control of that within here. And as the product matures, we'll get more granular with that. But right now you can do view only access and you can do different levels. For example, my spouse and I, we share ownership rights,
Mhm.
but then there's management rights. And so there's different levels of access.
Yeah, no, that's great. And how many people can you give view rights to?
Oh, we don't limit that.
Okay.
Yeah. It's your information. If you want to share it.
Okay.
Um, so it's also good too if you're working with a subcontractor, interior designer, plumber, whatever. You can give them temporary access to do their project, and when they submit things, it goes into review, and then you can be the one to process that and say I accept it or I don't accept it, and that way you can just cut out a few steps of their documentation process.
Oh, that's great.
Speaking of the documentation process, once everything's in here, it's fully searchable. You can filter it, do what you want. But really, the excitement I get is when you then go and create a report. So I've got a few of them in here that I've already done pretty fast, but I just, wanted to save time and show this is an example of one of them. You put a custom photo up there, whatever you want. Everything, including the report, is logged on the blockchain. So we have a full provenance of that. You've got property, it organizes it by category: insurance, warranties, manuals. Manuals are a big deal for me. When I bought my home, the previous owner left me the best they could, which is a box of random things. And then, I like to do things by myself sometimes. And then I just had to give up, right? Because nothing was documented. And so keeping track of these, keeping track of the warranties for them, when the warranties expire, and so forth. Also, the warranties, how to claim the warranty. Some of these
Yeah.
warranties require the original receipt in order to do anything with them. So guess what? You have your receipts all logged in here, and then certificates, so on and so forth. And then you get into the areas. This is where the area designation really shines, because you can say, in this bedroom, this is the carpet that we used, and this is the vendor that installed the carpet, the America's Flooring Store. How do I get a hold of them if I have a stain I need help with, or something like that? Or what paint did I use in the bathroom? Going in there, I don't want to find it right now, but like Sherman Williams, cornflower blue, rather than trying to figure out a sample, right? So as you're managing your home, this gets to be really, really useful if you're going to sell your home, if you're going to insure your home, knowing what the replacement cost really is, rather than just doing some magic math on the back of a napkin. Plus, this is then your whole Rolodex for your vendors. And so for each one of these, for example, like I mentioned, you could, I think the viewing isn't working, but yeah, there it goes. You can click on this and then go directly to that vendor and see all that information associated with them. If you have the permissions, like we said, this is all access control.
So what I also like about this, because you and I have talked about this before, is the advantage of blockchain is that it is without paper, even though having paper copies is always good. But if something was to happen to the paper copy, you at least have the electronic version of it that is timestamped. So that way it can verify that it is the original document, like you were talking about.
Mhm.
And, and again, from an insurance perspective or any other emergency situation, fire, again, if something happens, earthquake, we don't always think about the disaster side of things, but having this electronic means that you can always fully access the history no matter what happens. And that way, like you said, you have proof when you are trying to file a claim. So
Mhm.
I think that that will, and in different parts of the United States, I think that that's going to really um, support, the use of this for
We've
sure.
heard from a lot of people, specifically around fires,
Yeah,
out
yeah,
west, and floods.
floods.
When those are happening, you care for the personal safety of your loved ones. You don't want to be running through the house trying to find the box that kept your warranty.
Yeah, exactly.
Things may not be, because of that, you have that traceability. You can say, well, this deed came from the county registrar, and here's the information so I can quickly find it.
Yeah, no,
Right?
no, it's this is really practical, and the applications, keep coming into my mind. So, what's the process? You simply make an account, you sign up for the use of it, and then you just access it like through the portal. It's as easy as that.
It is as easy as that. So you go to our website, realestateledger.io. I opened up the staging one here. Let me go to realestateledger.io. You can sign up here. You can log in here. Goes through, gives you some examples, explains all of our pricing, all right here, very transparent. You can do monthly or annual. You can start with a 30-day free trial. You set it up, configure your first property, and then do all the things I showed you just a few minutes ago.
And what else would you like to share?
Oh, I think that's a good start.
All right. Well, everyone who is listening to this, definitely let Constellation know that you heard about it through either the Blockchain Legal Institute or the Maryland Blockchain Association. Because who knows, there might be some discounts or rewards that we're going to be able to offer you as a result of that referral through our side, possibly. We'll see. And definitely, this is something that I think needs to be considered by everyone because technology is being created to ease the quality of our life. And I know I'm sitting next to a massive pile of receipts and papers that I have to do for the end of the month and for taxes and things like that. So, all I keep thinking about is, okay, as I start to do my taxes, why not, kind of navigate over to a platform like this and to start to upload what I have? Because, like you said, it's an incremental process. You don't have to do everything all at once.
Mhm.
But the other application that I'm going to suggest to everyone to consider this for, and Dave and Benjamin and I will talk about this afterwards, is if you have a will, this is extremely important because having a will means you also should have an addendum for a lot of the digital assets that you own or the physical assets like real estate that you own. So having access to a platform like this will also make it easier in case of a situation where it needs to get transferred and people and your family need to know more about what's in your community, your home. So I think that there's many practical applications to this. So Dave, thank you so much for being on. And any last words that you would like to say?
No, thank you very much. The will use case resonates with me. Something I hadn't really thought through previously. So thank you so much for your insights.
Yeah.
And please try it out. Let me know what you think. And of course, like Jackie mentioned, let us know that you came through the Blockchain Legal Institute, and we'll have some fun with this.
All right. Thank you, everyone. And definitely reach out if you have questions. We're here to support and to serve you. Talk to you later. Thank you. Bye-bye.